All right. I hope everyone can hear me. Maybe. Anyways, so hi, this is Let's Get Lit. So I'm doing this little live video just to kind of get to know me, kind of getting to know what I do, um, and also my top 10 book recommendations that I've read. Now, with the book portion of everything, these are just the ones I've read currently, or at least in my 31 years of being alive, that really have impacted me, and my recommendations for maybe something for you to check out. It's not just classic literature, there are modern works on here, and I'll give a brief description of like what each one's about, and also like why you should read it, why it's my favorite. But before all of that, just a little bit about me to kind of put a face behind the Let's Get Lit. Hi, my name is Caleb. Um, I currently live in Sarasota, Florida. Actually, Bradenton, but Sarasota and Bradenton are like sister cities. Essentially, sister cities. You have Sarasota, and then literally right above it is Bradenton. I'm right off the interstate, so I'm in Bradenton, but we just kind of call it Sarasota. That way, it's a little bit easier in general to understand where. I actually am not from Florida originally. I am from Arkansas. I am from a very small town called Norphlet. It is right close to the border of Arkansas and Louisiana. So I grew up there. My family still lives in Arkansas. My dad still has my childhood house that I grew up in. And so I usually go back occasionally to visit. I love my family. I love the area that Arkansas is just because, again, I grew up there, so it was wonderful. And again, this is a live, so I know no one's watching right now. That's perfectly fine. But if anyone comes into the chat, I'd be more than happy to answer questions as I'm kind of going through everything. So, again, a little bit of background about me. So, again, I'm from Arkansas. I grew up there, was born and raised there. Yes, we did have running water. We did have electricity. We had all of the necessities. I say that jokingly because I did go to New York for my high school graduation gift from my mom when she was alive. And I did get asked by some New Yorkers if we had running water, electricity, etc. We did. So that's just one thing I joke about, and I still joke about to this day. When I graduated high school, I went off to college. So I studied at Southern Arkansas University. My original major was actually going to be choral and music, but I got into the theatrics department. And after that first semester, I got a scholarship that helped pay for my education and tuition. So I transferred majors to theatrics. I did a lot there. I did performance, technical, etc. Well, I also got to go to New York with that program and got to work on an off-Broadway show, which was fantastic. So that was a lot of fun. Before I graduated college, I actually interned at a theater here in Bradenton, the Manatee Performing Arts Center. And so I moved down partially because Sarasota and Bradenton had a lot, and it still has a lot of arts and cultures, and that's what I was getting my degree in. So that's what I really wanted to go towards. And so I've kind of had some not odd jobs, I've had jobs in the arts since then. Currently, I'm in architecture, which is a lot of fun. Again, studying theater, I mainly did scenic design, lighting design. And so with that, my knowledge of using the Vectorworks programs, AutoCAD, stuff like that, I was able to now work in the architectural business. So that's fun. As I said in my previous video, I am getting a master's in literature because that is what I want to do. But I do want to teach. That's my goal. I want to be a college professor. So that's kind of a little bit right now. I'm doing my 9 to 5, and then I am working on my master's so that way I can better educate myself and work towards that goal. So that's a little bit about me. Again, what I will say is that if you guys are watching this after the live, leave me a question in the comments. I'd be more than happy to answer them, stuff like that. One thing I do want to say is I know I had 2 videos on my channel previously about Anne Frank. I did look into copyrights, and unfortunately, I took those videos down just because I don't want to get copyright infringed. This is still a new channel. It's still growing. I don't want to hinder it really at this point. So, but anyways, I am going to work towards the future to do live readings of books that are in public domain or reach out to publishings or whoever holds the rights to see about doing live readings. So that's a little bit about me, a little bit about kind of where I've been. And again, feel free to ask me questions in the comments below, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. All right, so my top 10 book recommendations that I have. These are a mixture of classic and modern and everything in between. And again, I'm 31, so some people would call that old. I don't feel like I'm that old, but these are just books that I have read that have left impacts on me for various reasons, whether it's made me question things, whether it's made me like, there's one book that I threw across the room because I just was stunned by the ending of, and they're just really great. And I guess it kind of shows my personality in each one, but not everything that I read I enjoy. Not everything I read makes it into my top 10 list, but these are also in no particular order. So I will start off with my first book recommendation, and that is I Am the Messenger by Markus Zusak. So this book I actually read in high school. If you have not read this book is phenomenal. I recommend it 100%. It is this guy, he gets held up in a bank robbery. And when he does, he's very much a smartass, and I love that. And so he gets his playing card, and this playing card, he has to do things, or else he's going to, something's going to happen to him. So throughout the book, I mean, it's very adult. There's a lot of things in it that are very much hard to kind of grasp. But the last sentence of the last page is so meta, and it's so fantastic that if you've not read this book, read it. It's so good. I can't spoil anything, but the author is phenomenal. He's done The Book Thief. He has a new one that's come out. I recommend it. Definitely check it out. You will not be disappointed. Okay, my second book, again, no particular order, is Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. Now, some people do not like Ray Bradbury. I love him. He wrote Fahrenheit 451. He wrote Martian Chronicles. He wrote The Halloween Tree. If you know what I'm talking about. I'm 31. I watched Cartoon Network as a kid. The Halloween Tree special, yeah, that's Ray Bradbury. So this book is phenomenal. This book is set like in the 1920s, turn of the century. It is about a son, and it is about a father. And they have a strained relationship. This really cool carnival comes into town. It's the young boy and his best friend. They sneak out of the house. They go to the train tracks, and this train comes, and this conductor walks out, and he is covered in tattoos. I mean, head to toe of monsters and creatures. And it's really cool because he opens up his sleeves and he says this like incantation, and all of the tattoos lift off of his body and turn into real people and real things. And it's so cool. And if you know the old trope of like, if it's too good to be true, then it is, that's what this book is. And that's where it comes from. It's so much fun. And essentially the way the bad guy is defeated is so unexpected, but is so poignant to the story that it's so much fun. And again, I love the way Ray Bradbury writes. He's got this poetic, lyrical nature to him. So when you first start out, it's gonna feel different. It's gonna feel like, what the fuck am I reading? But stick with it because it's so descriptive. It feels so cozy that I love it. And if you've never read this, please do. It's drastically different from 451. It is a feel-good story. So this is my second book. All right, number 3. You may not have heard of this one. Oh Pioneers by Willa Carter. So I actually am reading this one for my American Lit class. Actually, I finished it. If you've never read this book, it was written in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and it's about this girl named Alexandra. And her family are Swedish. They're immigrants. They come over and they're working the land. What's really cool about this book is that even though, spoiler alert, her mom and dad die, her dad is the one who gives her control of like the farm and the finances, even though she's not the oldest. And so it's set in like 3 sections. You have when she's like 16, when she's like 20 something, and when she's like in her 40s. What's really cool about this book is that one, she makes the family rich because she knows the land and she is really knowledgeable. And she's very smart. She's very humble in this book, and everything changes around her, but she still keeps her cool. Now, again, some of you are going to be like, why am I going to read this? It's like 114 pages. It's super small. It's got emotions and it has got context and themes that we're still dealing with to this day. Like when you know you're right, when you let goodness prevail versus when society is telling you not to, trusting your heart, trusting your instincts, and relying on your self-knowledge, things that you've learned through life. This book, I had never heard of it. It was not on my radar. Again, I'm reading it for class. I finished it. I legitimately finished this book in probably like 4 hours. I just dove through it. And you better believe this will be a series on the channel because it's so good. And I really, really think you guys should watch this, or at least read this. Okay. Let's go on to another one. So this is like book number 4-ish. Okay. I do have to bring some classic literature into this, but it's not the Iliad, it's the Odyssey. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, ugh, it's a classic. Yes, and for good reason. The Odyssey is one of the oldest known stories to mankind. Fun fact, Homer did not come up with the story. Homer just wrote it. He's the first one to write it down. If you know anything, I'm going to go into a little bit of teacher mode for like 2 seconds, so bear with me. Homer was the first one to write it, not the first one to come up with it. It had been passed down for generations and for centuries beforehand. The Odyssey is such a beautiful, just amalgamation of Greek gods and humanness and what makes a monster. And it's so good. I mean, there are moments with, again, the Cyclops, whenever he's nobody, quote unquote, and he stabs the eye, to Scylla, to the underworld, to Calypso, to all of these really like pinnacles of Greek mythology that we think of. And it's amazing. And I will give a shout out because I'm a nerd, I'm a theater guy, I've listened to everything. There is a musical called Epic. And Epic the musical is based on the Odyssey, and it is a rock like opera, I guess. Go check it out. I mean, I have listened to that thing for probably a month straight. It is rock. It's got some heartfelt songs into it, and it captures the emotions of the characters in the book. There's a reason why this one's a classic. And if you like movies like I do, Christopher Nolan is coming out with an Odyssey in 2026 with like Zendaya, Anne Hathaway. What's his name? He's the one who plays Spider-Man, the newest one. Anyways, they're all in it. I'm excited. A big nerd for Greek mythology. I love it. Please read it. If not, I do have an audio of this one on my channel, so I do recommend listening to it. It's so much fun. There's a reason why it's a classic and why people still love it. So that's another one of my recommendations, one of my top 10s. And jumping with the Greek mythology, but in a different light, The House of Hades by Rick Riordan. You'll know this. This is the guy who wrote Percy Jackson, and The House of Hades is actually his second series with Percy Jackson. It's the Heroes of Olympus. Now, I could have cheated and did the whole Heroes of Olympus series, but I stuck to one book. This is the one that stuck with me the most, is The House of Hades. And the reason for that is because, to me, this is his most brilliant writing. I love Rick Riordan. He gives so much fun characterizations to the Greek gods and goddesses and like Tartarus. And this book in his series, to me at least, is the darkest. This is the most adult. This is the most, I mean, the actions they're dealing with, the consequences they're dealing with, just how they're going to get out of Hades is phenomenal. And it's not even Hades. They're in Tartarus. They're walking on the body of Tartarus, which is really cool. And the way that Annabeth gets them through the situation is very interesting. It's very clever. It's such a twist on what you would think, that this one is my favorite out of the whole series. I am watching the Percy Jackson series on Disney Plus, and I pray to God or the gods above that they make the Heroes of Olympus into a series, because I would love to see this on Disney Plus or just in general. So if you have not read this, it's great. Do you have to read Percy Jackson first? I guess you really don't, but the books are so short, I would say do, just because you're going to get a lot of information and it's going to make it that much richer. I do own the entire Percy Jackson series. I own all of the Heroes of Olympus and the Apollo Trials. I haven't read the Apollo Trials yet. I'm still reading them, but definitely recommend. There's humor, there's heart. This one is suspenseful because they're like again, serious consequences. They will die if they don't get out of Hades or out of Tartarus. So definitely recommend this one for sure if you've never read it. And it's great for like teenagers. The characters like young adults, so they're like in their 18 to like 20ish. So it's really, really good. Kind of jumping off of the bridge with Hades and kind of that theme. Another classic that I love is The Divine Comedy. Now, The Divine Comedy, I'm going to stick to Inferno, which Inferno is hell. I did an entire research paper on this last semester with Dante. I love The Divine Comedy, and especially Inferno. I'll give you some reasons why. So the first reason is that if you've ever seen Mean Girls, the movie, the Burn book, that's essentially what Inferno is. So a little bit of history is that Dante, back in the time when he was writing this, he was part of the White Guelphs. Now, the White Guelphs were kind of like a political faction in Florence. And so with Dante, the Black Guelphs and the White Guelphs were kind of at odds with each other. One section wanted political power, the other one wanted political power. Long story short, they exile him. He is pissed. So as he's exiled, he writes The Divine Comedy. And a lot of people that he does not like are in hell. And it's so funny. I mean, it's just hysterical. So there's that. However, he also takes concepts of Christianity in that time period and really puts a light to them. Purgatory was not a new thing. It had started in like 1000 AD, a little bit beforehand. But by the time it gets to Dante, it's corrupt, as things always happen in the church, as things always happen in Christianity. If there's man's going to corrupt it. So people were paying for penances. They were paying for repentance. And so Dante didn't like that. Dante's like, no. You cannot skip purgatory. Purgatory is necessary. It cleanses your soul. Then you go up to heaven. So he writes this. It's beautiful. It is a little hard to read. I'm not going to lie. I did not read it until I was in college, but it's a great story. It's really like you have to kind of dig through everything, which is great. One thing I was studying in my master's with The Divine Comedy, especially Inferno, you can use it as an allegory for therapy. So like Inferno is, the way Inferno is designed, it goes down. So you can actually, the way that I kind of described it is like therapy, you're working towards the inner being of yourself. You're working all the way through everything. You're going to the interior. Purgatory is a mountain, so you're climbing up. You're working through your problems as you digest them. And then Paradiso, or heaven, is when you finally get through everything and you can not live with yourself, but you can kind of go through and understand everything. I think it's phenomenal. I think it's really, really interesting. And it gives, some people don't like it because they don't like Dante's vision of hell or whatever, but that's fine. I think it's interesting. I highly recommend it. I'm not Catholic, I'm Christian, but I'm more of like Presbyterian, Lutheran kind of ish. So I have an amalgamation of my religion. So I'm not evangelical. I'm Lutheran, Presbyterian-ish. So with a little sprinkle of Catholic, just because it's kind of fun. Anyways, that's one that I recommend. Moving on to another one. I guess since we're talking about Inferno, kind of a theme, Paradise Lost. So this is the best fan fiction I've ever read. And you heard me right, fan fiction, because Paradise Lost is not based on anything in the Bible or teachings. It is a fan fiction, and Milton wrote it because he said he had divine inspiration or intervention. Hear me out. It's phenomenal. It is more of a realistic, in my mind, like interpretation of Genesis, and it's so cool. So if you know anything about Paradise Lost, I did do a whole series of this on the channel. I'm such a nerd when it comes to religion. I just think it's fascinating. So Satan's not a good guy. Let's get that out right out the bat. And in Paradise Lost, he's not a good guy at all. But in this book, it starts when Satan is in hell. After he's been cast in hell, he's wrapped up in the chains. His legions of demons are chained into the lake of fire. And it starts right there. And Satan is obviously not happy. So with his great strength, he breaks the chains. Milton's like, no. God did it. There's a reason for it. it's a chess match between what Satan does, what God does, all the intervening. It's so cool. Okay, so also what's great is growing up as a Christian or growing up in the church. There were a lot of times where in my mind I was like, this doesn't make sense. Why does Eve eat the apple if she knows she's not supposed to? Why does Adam eat it, especially after Eve's eaten it? I don't understand. He really gives them human characteristics. So, like when Satan works his way through all of the different levels up to the Garden of Eden, he goes in disguised as a snake. He's whispering into her ear. I mean, and he whispers for like months. It's not like an overnight, like, eat the apple. I mean, he's like working her down. He's getting into her psyche. Excuse me. And it's really brilliantly done. And when she eats the apple, she obviously tells Adam. And when Adam eats the apple, it's not because he is stupid. It's not because he's oblivious or ignorant. He eats it because he tells her that he doesn't want to live without her. It's that human connectedness. It's that he loves her so much that he knows he's going to do wrong, but he doesn't want to be away from her. It's that true, pure love that he expresses. And that's what I love about it. And even in the book, just like in the Bible, what's really beautiful is even when God casts them out of the Garden of Eden, it's not a, go live over here, you disgusting creatures. It's nothing like that. God gives them clothes and clothes them and is like, you are no longer pure enough to be in the Garden of Eden, but I'm not going to forsake you at all. And that's why he sends, I think it's Gabriel, down to Adam and shows Adam the future. It's like, you need to stay alive. You need to make sure that your generations are going to come, because out of man, you will defeat death. You'll defeat Satan. And it's beautiful. And I think that's really, really powerful with the message, because in here, they contemplate suicide. Adam and Eve are just like, maybe we shouldn't live anymore. If we're unpure, God can make something better, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's such an interesting take, and it's such an interesting story diving into it, that it's just brilliant. And I will say, doing some research, because I can't take things at face value, if you look at older Bibles, the King James is obviously not the oldest Bible. You have the Genoa Bible and you have the Ethiopian Bible. Now, I'm not a biblical scholar by any means. And when when King James essentially put together the King James Bible, he had these scholars who looked at all the different Bibles that were out there, picking out which books and sticking them together. Well, where do you think they got some of those books of the Bible? The Genoa Bible. And before that, you had the Ethiopian Bible. And again, I need to do more research, but from my research that I found, in the Ethiopian Bible, Adam and Eve actually commit suicide. Or that's something that has led me to believe based on my readings that I've been able to find. And that's what I think is interesting, is that Paradise Lost mentions that. So again, it's an interesting story. It's a very good fan fiction. And when people say that fan fiction isn't art, I disagree. I think sometimes fan fiction is justified unless it's 50 Shades of Grey. Anyways, enough about that. So now we're gonna move on to, I think this is number 9 of my top 10. It's The Great Gatsby. And some people are gonna go, ugh. No, it's actually a good book. It's very short. It's like 120 pages. I did not think a book written 100 years ago was going to be as prevalent as it is still today. In this book, you see Nick Carraway, who is our main protagonist. He's our author. He's not middle class, but he's not high rich. He's kind of upper middle class. He can rent a house on Long Island. He can, or West Egg, East Egg. And it's a really interesting exploration of new money, old money, the American dream. And there's a really good quote. It's not from Gatsby, but there's a really good quote that says, the American dream is just that. It's a dream. You have to be asleep to achieve the dream. And that is the quote unquote, it's true. The American dream is a dream. It doesn't exist. It's never existed. If you look in our society today, you can try as hard as you want to and work as hard as you want to and put in all the hours. You're not going to have the American dream. It's just a fact at this point. when people are living paycheck to paycheck, when even if you make new money, you're never going to be considered rich. You're always going to have an asterisk by your name. So, and that's what happens to Gatsby. Gatsby goes off into the war. Gatsby gets all this money, and even when he's so close to Daisy, his one true love, they never treat him as an equal. He's always new money. He's always, oh, I'm flashy money. Oh, you're not actually rich. You're just, you're just now rich. You don't have the air of being rich. You don't have the sense of decency, of elegance. So I think that's why I love this so much, and especially in this book, Tom murders Myrtle. I mean, or well, Daisy murders Myrtle. She drives the car. She hits her. She hits her. She kills her. There's no repercussions for her actions at all. And then Tom is the one who kills Gatsby indirectly, but he kills Gatsby. Tom's the one who goes to Myrtle's husband. He's like, listen, this guy killed your wife. You need to kill him, X, Y, Z. And it happens. And so there's a quote in the actual book, and it's something like, Tom and Daisy were terrible people. Like, they came out, they played with their toys, they smashed them up, and then when things got too serious, they retreated back. And that's exactly right. There's no repercussions for their actions. They handle everything, they push the blame off to someone else, and they still get to go live their happy lives. They both know that they're cheaters. I mean, from the very beginning of the book, when Nick is at dinner with Tom and with Daisy, the fifth guest with a shrill telephone is his mistress. And Daisy knows that. And on the same hand, Tom's not stupid. Tom knows that Daisy's fooling around with Gatsby, but they don't care, because as long as it doesn't affect them, it doesn't matter. So I think this is such a brilliantly written book that, again, themes even to this day that we're seeing, where the rich make the rules, everybody else just kind of has to pay for it. And especially in society today, it's still just as true. It's still just right there. So I really think you should read it. If you don't want to read it, I do say in one of my series, watch the, what's his name? Leonardo DiCaprio. Watch that version with Baz Luhrmann. Yeah, the music is new. If you can get past that, the movie itself is pretty much like 85-90% the book. There's only the very brief part at the end where it's different, but it's not in a major way that it's going to make you change what you've learned. So again, I highly recommend The Great Gatsby. It's such a good book. I love it. I recommend it. Okay, last but certainly not least is To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, this book I had to read in 7th grade. All of the class had to read it. And when you first read it, you're kind of like, why am I reading this? I don't understand. But I love this book. Set in Alabama during the 1930s. The whole thing is told primarily through Scout, the little girl. And it's just a really good book. I'm still reading other books that explores like race relations and explores racism. And so this one may fall out of my top 10, but I think right now this one just had the most impact on me. I am reading Color Purple for class, and I am reading A Lesson Before Dying, which I'm super excited to get through. I have seen Color Purple, again, being in theater. I've seen the musical. I think it's wonderful. Cynthia Erivo is phenomenal. But To Kill a Mockingbird is still one of my favorites, just because the story is wonderful. It's a little white saviory, I guess, in today's connotation of everything. But I really do love it, and I think the bluntness of it being told through a child is fantastic. So the fact that you're getting everything from Scout, you're seeing it through this like 10 or 12-year-old girl, and she doesn't understand she understands society, but not to the implications that really were during this time. So I think that's one of the reasons why it still has stuck with me to this day. I'm going to be rereading it for the channel because it's just wonderful. I have not read the sequel to Set a Watchman, but this one is one that, again, I love this book. I think everyone should read this book. So it is just fantastic. And I think that's all of my top 10 at this point. So just quick recap. We have To Kill a Mockingbird. We have The Great Gatsby. We have Paradise Lost. We have Inferno. We have The House of Hades by Rick Riordan. We have The Odyssey by Homer. Again, he wrote it. He's not the one who came up with the story. We have O Pioneers. We have Something Wicked This Way Comes. We have I Am the Messenger by Marcus Zusak. Oh, that's only 9. Hold on. The Reader. Okay, so this is actually my last one. This is my top 10. Okay, so The Reader is hold on, I gotta make sure it does this right. Okay, so The Reader is my number 10, or at least in my top 10. This book is so old, I've had it since high school. This book is one of the books that really took me by surprise. So this one is, how do I put it? It's so slice of life historical. It's very interesting. It's going to make you think about what you've just read. And on the surface of this book, some people would be very quick to go, it was wrong, blah, 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 X, Y, Z, black and white. This book will take that subject and make you think about it and go, what if I was experiencing this? What if I was in this situation? How do you navigate through these waters? So The Reader, a brief synopsis, is essentially about this young man. He's in Germany. It is right before World War II. His name is Michael Berg, I believe is what his name is. So he's out one day, I think he's like 16 or 17, and he gets ill. And this woman, who in the movie is played by Kate Winslet, I think Hannah is her name. So Hannah takes care of him. Anna kind of like gets him back to health, and they actually form this like relationship. They see each other, they love each other. Now, she is twice his age. Again, he's like 17, so she's like in her 30s. So then that romance blossoms out, it fades out, and then it jumps to after World War II. Now, with The Reader, when it jumps to after World War II, she is now being put on trial because she was one of the train conductors for Auschwitz. Now, again, on the surface, people would be like, oh, she's guilty, kill her, etc., etc. However, Michael has now become a lawyer, and he recognizes her because he's the one who has to defend her. He's like a public attorney. Well, what you learn through all this is that she cannot read. She's illiterate. Also, historical context that the book brings in is that people in Germany took just about any job they could. The economy was not great. It was all going towards the war. They were losing the war, et cetera, et cetera. And so she did what she had to do to put food on her table for herself. And so, again, some people automatically would be like, she's guilty, kill her, etc. Not him. He knows she can't read. And so he tries to save her from being executed. He's like, no, she shouldn't be killed, because she tells the court she did not know what she was doing. All her job was to take the tickets, punch them, put the people on the train. She had no idea where it was going. She had no idea what was going on. And he proves it because she's illiterate. And so it's a beautiful book. I won't ruin the ending of it, but it's such a phenomenal book that, again, it stuck with me. I read this again in high school. And this was one of those books that I picked up in Goodwill. Again, it's very old. It's very crusty. But I picked it up in high school. I read it. And then I rented the movie a few months later when I found out, obviously, Kate Winslet's in it. And the movie and the book are very similar. And it's wonderful. But this book explores topics that may be uncomfortable. And it's such a beautifully written book. It's one of those that don't knock it till you try it. So again, this book is phenomenal. This book is one that I definitely recommend. It's like 180 pages. It's a very easy read. So I recommend this one. This one is very much for adults, though. There are some scenes that are graphically depicted, whether it be in a sexual nature or violent nature. But it's never anything that's going to be too uncomfortable for someone to handle. especially if you're, again, 17, 18, you'll be fine. So that's kind of my list of my top 10. Again, so The Reader came in at number 10, or again, no specific order, but that was one. So let me know in the comments what your favorite book is, if what your top 10 are and why. So I have a lot of various top 10s in my list, a lot of interesting books. And again, if there's any questions that you guys have about me, or about maybe if there's a book that you like that maybe I've read, maybe I haven't, or if you have suggestions, let me know. Because I'm always looking for things to read. I'm always going through new things. I love reading. So yeah, I just want to know more about you guys. So again, if there's any questions you have, ask them. I'd be more than happy to answer them. Or any recommendations that you might have, or maybe something I might have for you. So I'm always reading. My list always kind of updates. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm gonna stop rambling on and on. But have a good night. And again, leave some comments down below because I would love to answer any questions you guys have. So have a wonderful night, and I will hopefully talk to you guys soon. Bye. There we go.